Hey there, everybody. This is Tim Blankenship with Divorce661.com coming at you live again. Today, we'll be talking about what to consider before you get married. I've done over 1,500 videos about divorce over the last 10 plus years. I thought I'd start making some content about how to avoid divorce. So, a little bit different format today than what we've normally done. I'm actually going to be showing you a video that was created by someone who did a really good job at presenting the things to ask your spouse prior to getting married. I think that people, uh, our young adults these days, are jumping into marriage without asking these questions. I have a daughter who's in her mid 20s living with her boyfriend, and these are things that we are seeing and thinking of as well. And just want to share some of this with you. And if you are joining us, you can feel free to chime in. I'll share your comments and let others know what you think. So let's jump right into it. Things to consider and discuss with your spouse before you get married. We'll start with a video off here.
Now, here is a list of questions you should ask your partner and thoroughly discuss before getting married. Number 1, what does your relationship with your family and friends look like? It's extremely important to understand and accept the role that your partner's family and friends play in his or her life. A big part of how compatible two people are is how they engage with their partner's family and friends. If family plays a big role in your partner's life, you need to know. When you marry someone, you marry into their family too. If your partner goes for family lunch every Sunday and that is a staple of his or her life, it is something that you will have to be okay with doing too. What role will your two families and friends play in your life together? This spans everything from short visits to extended stays to holidays and special events. Do you get along with your partner's friends? These are all important questions you have to ask your partner before getting married.
So, one thing that made me think about is that about parent friends, how that is going to. Our daughter was talking about she has friends, a lot of friends from growing up from high school, as does her longtime boyfriend. They're now living together, and they had a lot of mutual friends, which was interesting. Which I told her, I always joke with her. I say, if you end up not being together anymore, you guys are going to have to choose sides of who's going to remain friends with who. But I wanted to share something that I was out with dinner with some friends, and they had actually witnessed this firsthand. They had, this is regards to the parents of the spouses, or even if you're just boyfriend and girlfriend living together, how that interplay and conversations are with the parents of the other of your boyfriend or girlfriend's spouse, their parents. So what they did is they said they were at dinner. I forget the name of the restaurant, and a young gal came in her mid 20s, and happy, chipper, full of zeal in life, and on her phone, chatting with, texting with her friends and just having a good time. And then who walked in to join her was presumably her father, as it was later determined with the conversation that apparently they heard and the entire restaurant heard, that essentially once the father, and this is actually the father of the daughter, obviously, sat down, the first thing he said is, "What the F is wrong with your husband or boyfriend?" I don't recall what it was. "Why doesn't he respect me when I come over to your house?" And this is interesting. So what they said is that this young, happy, chipper, full of life gal, when immediately facial, expression changed, unhappiness, et cetera, et cetera. But apparently the conversation went on along those lines of, that your boyfriend or husband needs to respect me when I come over. He needs to, present himself and welcome me into his home and be there at the front door when I come in, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously that's going to put a strain on the relationship. The boyfriend, she's going to have to go back and report this, tell what happened with her conversation with her father. And that's not going to make things better. If she thinks she's going to what, to hide that conversation. She may choose to do that, but I think that's just, putting that out there in a way that will prevent them from ever having a good relationship together. Whether the right thing would be to talk to her husband, boyfriend, and say, "Hey, This is a conversation I had with my dad, but I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I don't see how that's going to help the relationship between the boyfriend and her father. So just something to think about. As parents, I'm in that category now. Obviously, I have a 26-year-old daughter, so we try to be respectful when we go over to they're living together now in an apartment as boyfriend and girlfriend. But we go over there very respectful. We don't expect anything from them. We don't expect them to treat them how we would treat them at our house as guests or whatnot. They're living their lives. They're going to do things the way they do things, and we just have to go along with it. So let's get into number 2 here.
Number 2, what is your financial goal in terms of annual income, and what are your expenses like? For your annual income, this includes how much you earn together and what your collective goal is, as well as your individual goals and how you anticipate achieving them. This can include the percentage of income you're willing to spend on maintaining your home, as well as your categories of expenses such as clothing, insurance, travel, and more. Once a couple gets married, their finances are combined. You will absolutely need to know what kind of debt, if any, your partner is in, how they plan on financing their money, and their future plans and goals in terms of finances. Do you want to buy a house? Start a business? Finances often play a big role in the demise of marriages, so it is extremely important to have full clarity about financial goals, expenses, and debts before you get married.
So 2 things I want to discuss about this. Money obviously is a hot topic when it comes to divorce, and with us helping our clients, it's frequently a reason for the divorce is finances, how they've handled them. And 2 things I want to talk about here is, again, kind of referencing my daughter. Again, she's recently in the last few months moved out with her boyfriend. They have an apartment, and they are not. In this video, they said, you're obviously going to be combining your finances, and that's true, and it's also false in a certain way. So I want to talk about that. Like our daughter, they're not married, so they're not going to combine their finances, but they are, they're not sharing checking accounts and all that, or their incomes and so forth, but they are in the way that they are splitting the costs of rent and utilities and all that 50-50, which I think is a good idea. I think Dave Ramsey says, until you're married, don't share accounts and so forth. I think he says don't even live together, but, or actually he does say live together so you can make sure you guys can actually live with each other. So yeah, not combining your accounts. And what we're seeing, interesting enough, is, again, we've been doing this for 10 years. So we've done a lot of divorce cases over the years, is we see clients who have short-term marriages, long-term marriages, who are not combining their assets and debts. Not only do they not know what the debts are being brought into the marriage, but they don't know what the parties even make income-wise. They don't share bank accounts. They have very interesting ways of handling their finances, where one spouse is, say, going to be responsible for the mortgage and utilities, and the other spouse will be, say, responsible for, I don't know, groceries and the vehicles, car payments and stuff like that. But they won't know what the other party makes. Maybe they have an idea. As long as they are each paying their respective loans and costs that they discussed, then the way they spend the rest of their money is completely up to them. They don't show their accounts or what they're buying or anything like that. So we'll find that these types of clients, and again, this is very popular, of marriages of all durations, where people have not combined their assets and debts. But what we find is these types of clients typically will have a lot of debt, and neither party knows what that debt is, usually consumer, credit card debt. And when they come to do their divorce, they won't know what the other party has as far as debts are concerned. And what they're generally doing, because they lived separate financial lives, they're usually not dividing up their assets and debts equally. They're usually just each keeping their own credit card debt, because that's kind of how they lived their marriage. So even though there was not, even though the assets and debts, even though in your separate name, are considered community property and subject to being divided 50-50, and they technically could do that if they wanted to, but because they lived financial, separate lives, they are just deciding to keep their own debt, which, if that works for you, you are allowed to do that through the court. So let's take a look at the next thing to consider.
Number 3, Will you have children together? This is absolutely something you need to ask your partner before even considering engagement. This can also often be a deal breaker for certain people. Many people get married and plan to have children after they get married. If you marry someone who doesn't want to have kids, but you do, it's usually a sign that the marriage is not going to work. You simply can't marry someone if you think he or she will change their mind about having children in the future. No matter how much you love a person, if your future goals and dreams don't align, especially if it pertains to having children, the marriage just won't last. You can't force anything on someone, especially if it's something as big as having kids. If you both want children, how many children do you want to have, and when? How will having children change the way you currently live? You will have to consider where you'll be living, how your finances will come into play, and your 5, 10, 15, and even 20-year plans if you do decide to have children. Keep on watching for some more ever-important questions to ask your partner before tying the knot.
Okay, so this is obviously a big topic. That one item that you guys should discuss before getting married is the kids issue. If you want them, all the things that this video brought out, how many, even the timing, time frame, all that good stuff. We've actually done several divorce cases over the last 10 years of doing this, where that was the sole reason they were getting the divorce. They still loved each other. They enjoyed every other part of the relationship, but one spouse wanted kids and the other spouse absolutely would not bend over and have kids. So definitely something to talk about. Divorce cases do happen. We do handle divorce cases for that specific reason. So it is something you'll want to talk about before you guys get married. Let's check out number 4.
Number 4, how ambitious are you? If you are ambitious, you probably want to be with someone who is as ambitious as you are. Are you comfortable with each other's level of ambition? How will this affect how much time you spend at work and your commitment to your career or family? Ambition can come into play when it comes to careers, hobbies, and more. It is a big thing to take into consideration, especially if your partner has ambitions to grow in his or her career, which would take a huge commitment and may require some sacrifices. Number 5.
So the ambitious issue is definitely something that I think you need to talk about on an ongoing basis, certainly before marriage, but something that you should also continue to discuss during marriage. Talking about interests and ambitions and goals and so forth, because those things can change. And we'll have a lot of clients that are getting divorced, and we don't ever ask what the reasoning for divorce, because you don't have to have a reason. So I'm never asking our clients, but when they are volunteering that information, usually they're saying something like this: we just seem to grow apart. Like we no longer have the same interests as each other. And I think that happens after time, I should say that happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight, obviously, but you're going to want to try and, talk to each other and keep that relationship going long term. I've been married now 28 years and not always perfect, obviously, but always trying to keep the communication open. And a lot of this, I would have to say, goes to the party. Like when we have someone filing for divorce and, they say, well, I'm just not happy or we've grown apart. And in talking with them, you kind of have to ask, that's fine. There's no reason you have to have for divorce, but you may want to ask yourself, what was your responsibility, equal responsibility? Maybe did you have those discussions? Were you having these conversations? Did you try therapy or counseling so you could have these conversations of what your interests are? And, moving forward, if they've changed, hey, I used to like this, but now, I'm kind of into this. My wife has been talking to me about dance lessons. I think she gave me an ultimatum, not an ultimatum, but she gave me a choice. I think we either have to start going to dancing lessons or I need to start going with her to gymnastic games. She's really into college gymnastics and she wants to start going to some games. So not sure which way I'm going to go on that, but she's expressed that. And also she's been expressing that she wants to travel a lot more. And I don't mind traveling. It just takes me away from work. And, I'm sure it would be enjoyable just when I'm gone. Business is closed. So it's always coming back to a lot more work. So when I'm on vacation, I'm really just thinking about when I get back, how much work there's going to be for me. But that's another thing she's brought to my attention, that she'd like to travel more. And so we're doing that as well. So I think on this, discussion point. It's just good to keep in talks with your spouse. If your ambitions change or interests change, just keep talking about that. All right, let's look at number 5.
Are you each satisfied with the frequency of your intimacy? A couple's sex life is a huge part of their relationship. Whether people like to admit it or not, there has to be a certain level of attractiveness and intimacy between two people in order for a relationship to strive and grow. Do your desire levels match? And how do you cope if they don't? Remember, you will be with this person for the rest of your life. If the intimacy is lacking, you will either have to accept it or find new ways to attract each other. This has to be an open discussion, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable.
So I kind of just want to leave this where it's at. I think it speaks for itself. But if I relate this to our clients, again, we're never asking what the reason for their divorce is when they're using our service. But when they volunteer it, usually it's to the degree that the intimacy has not been there for years, not just months, but years. There's been no intimacy. And again, I'll have to go back to what I was saying on the other topic is, was there a discussion on it? What's your responsibility to bring that up? Or are you just staying silent on it and allowing it to happen and being miserable? Or have you brought it up and despite bringing it up, I'm sure multiple times, it doesn't rectify the situation, then, I think that's one of the reasons I've told you people are growing apart and end up filing for divorce. Let's look at number 6.
Number 6. Are you happy with each other's approach to health? If you have a healthy lifestyle, you likely want a partner who has one too. Does one of you have a habit or habits that concerns the other? How important is a healthy lifestyle to you, and what does that encompass? These are important questions to ask, especially if you are concerned about how your partner's lifestyle and health may affect yours.
So health is obviously an issue that you want to consider for a lot of reasons before marriage, during marriage. And some notes that I wrote down is what I'm looking at here is it's about having common goals. I think it would be, and I'm sure there's relationships where one spouse might be the one that works out all the time, and other spouse, we're both work out, or neither work out, or I think maybe the worst might be where one does and the other doesn't. But from a health perspective, for longevity of your marriage, don't you want to be around long enough to, as long as you can, and being healthy in that way, working out, exercising, eating right is obviously something you should consider if you're not doing it. But one thing that I made a note about is where one spouse works out and the other does not, where is that time? That's just more time spent away from the marriage. And maybe that leaves to thoughts of, the wandering eye, if that's the case. Someone, for instance, works out twice a day or 2 hours a day, and they're just gone from the house on the weekend for 2 hours to go work out. Maybe that bothers the spouse. It doesn't work out because they'd rather be together, I don't know, watching movies, going out to dinner, or doing something else other than being separated by the party working out. To the same degree, it might be a good thing that they have that time apart, so one can work out and get that mental break and space and be apart. So I guess it just really depends. So yeah, health is definitely important because we've had over the 10 years, thousands of divorce cases. We've had clients die during the divorce process. And when you die during the divorce process, before the judgment's been entered, you have to dismiss the case because the death will supersede the divorce case, again, before the divorce case is finalized. So we have to file a request for dismissal with the court. And for me to be able to do that, I have to have a copy of the death certificate. And so I have to get that from our client, which usually takes a couple of weeks. Then we can prepare and file the request for dismissal. But what's shocking in many of these times, the age obviously is stated on the death certificate, and they've all been in their mid 40s. In most cases, obviously we've had some elderly, but they've been mid 40 deaths. And the reasoning on the death certificates, obviously I'm not going to tell you exactly what they are, but they were due to not working out and diet and lack of exercise. Those types of medical issues indicated on the death certificate. So it's important that you obviously work out, stay healthy. And if you and your spouse are doing it together, for instance, my wife and I, we built a gym in our garage a couple of years ago, and we work out a lot of times together. Not all the time, but we do work out every day. Maybe we'll take a day off here and there, but we try and work out together. Um, Sometimes, I'm more of a morning person. She's more of the evening person. So sometimes, definitely on the weekends, we work out together in the garage, but me in the mornings, Monday through Friday, on the weekends together, her in the evenings, Monday through Friday. And our workouts are a little bit different. Our approach, I like the weights and the hit cardio type stuff. And she enjoys more of the yoga and Pilates type workout, but we both work out and we both kind of keep each other in check on our health and give each other a hard time. If she doesn't work out for a few days, I'll make a kind of a snide comment about how was your workout today or something like that, just to get her going. All right, let's look at number 7. I think we're on.
Number 7. Do you share a religion or spiritual practice, and in what way does that play a part in your life together? This is a big question to ask your partner, and is obviously something that you two should discuss before even getting engaged. Do you belong to a religious institution? How much time do you devote to your religious practice, and are you each understanding and respectful of the other's choices? If your partner is religious and devotes part of his or her time to this religion, is that something you're comfortable with? Number 8. How do you share?
So religion's obviously a big topic, and I don't know how that wouldn't come up if you are thinking of getting married. If you've been dating for a period of time, I'm sure if attending church is something that you do or practice, that's something that you guys would continue to do during the dating process. So I'm sure that's something that would be discussed or learned of the other party. And then to what degree are you devout? Are you going all the time? Is it like, for instance, I think my wife's mother goes to church every day. So that's interesting. I think the church is down the street, so it's not too far for her, but she goes every day. So yeah, religion's big. Obviously, it's one of the other things you want to talk about. We've talked about, just kind of recapping this, ambitiousness, and if you want kids, your financial goals, if you're the health, and then let's see what we say here for number 8.
Their responsibility in terms of kids and household duties. You will have to determine the different types of responsibilities you and your partner will have once you get married. Who is responsible for the housekeeping, and how do you divvy up your chores? Will having a child affect your work schedule or reduce your work hours? You will have to take all of these things into consideration before you get married. You will have to compromise about who does what around the house, and also take your careers into consideration. When you have kids, you also have to figure out who takes care of what, and how to delegate certain responsibilities. What do you think of the questions?
Alrighty, so household duties. Let me just remove this here. I get in trouble for this often. Both of us work from home, my wife and I. So, I think we're busier than ever before. We don't even have the relaxation of a commute. We're in the office at 6 a.m. We're usually working until 8 p.m. And it's just like one long work day. And in between, we'll try and do the household duties, cook, run down the kitchen in between consultations, or, helping clients with paperwork, and cook a meal, or try and work out real quick before the morning or in between clients. And so everything's kind of a big shuffle. Nothing's done in a kind of planned formation, except, to make sure that, just try and get the house vacuumed at least once a day, doesn't matter what time, to get the toilets cleaned. But dividing those up, it's kind of like whoever's the most free to get that done. Maybe one of us has more time than the other one day to get that done, but it all ends up getting done. Once in a while, I'll get a nudge to maybe help out a little bit more, and I'll usually try and do that so I don't get in trouble. But household duties is important that you guys share those, even if one of the spouses is working full time and the other is not, unless that is what you agree to, and that's fine too. When going over these 8 different topics we talked about today, as far as things to discuss before getting married, I was telling her I was going to do this podcast, and she said, do you remember when we've been married 28 years? She said, do you remember when we were first dating that, we were sitting in the car and we just, came back from dinner, and you said, hey, let's talk. And I literally went over one by one, kind of bullet point. Okay, religion. Where do you stand on religion? And let's talk about, what is your religion? Do you go to church? Is that, versus, and then I would share what I did. And we went on down. I think all of these issues, maybe not the ambitious one, but definitely we talked about the finances. So number one was, with the parents. Number two was, what's your financial goal? I think we talked about that. Three was, will you want kids? We definitely spoke about that. I don't know if we talked about how many. I think it was just, do you want kids? Yes or no. How ambitious, what are our goals, financial goals, health. I don't know that we talked about health because we were in our early 20s, and I think you're not concerned about health at that age. But yeah, she jokes with me after I told her I was going to do this podcast about these 8 things to consider before getting married. She said, we literally did this in probably 10 minutes in the car after dinner one day and just knocked these out. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed me going over things to discuss prior to divorce. And we'll trying to do a live broadcast every day at noon. And you can go to divorce661.com. We just put a new page up there, divorce661.com. And there's a button that says live shows, I believe. And on there, you can click and see what the next live show is going to be. This is streamed live on our website. It's also streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So I hope you enjoyed your show. And if you guys want to tune in again tomorrow at noon, we'll be having another show. Thanks a lot, and we will talk to you soon.